and your transcendental form is always beyond the material creation. You are the Supreme Personality of Godhead because you remain everywhere within all existence. You are consequently known as Vasudeva. We offer you our respectful obeisances. Purport by His Divine Grace, Sri Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is known as Vasudeva because he lives everywhere. The word uh, Vas means to live. As stated in Brahma Samhita, Ekopi aso ruchayitam jagad anda kotim. The Lord, through his plenary portion, enters into each and every universe to create the material manifestation. He also enters into each and every heart in all living entities, and into each and every atom also. Paramanu Chayantara Stam. Because the Supreme Lord lives everywhere, he is known as Vasudeva. Although he lives everywhere within the material world, he is not contaminated by the modes of nature. The Lord is therefore described in Ishopanishad as apapa vidam. He is never contaminated by the modes of material nature. When the Lord descends on this planet, he acts in many ways. He kills demons and performs acts not sanctioned by the Vedic principles. That is, acts considered sinful. Even though he acts in such a way, he is never contaminated by his action. He is therefore described herein as Suddha, meaning always free from contamination. The Lord is also Sama, equal to everyone. In this regard, he states in Bhagavad Gita 9:29, Samaham Sarvabhutesu Name Dveso Stina Priya. And that verse, and that says, the Lord has no one as his friend or enemy, and he is equal to everyone. The word satvaya, indicates that the form of the Lord is not material. It is Satchit Ananda Vigraha, which means Ishvara Parama Krishna Satchitananda Vigraha. His body is different from our material bodies. One should not think that the Supreme Personality of Godhead has a material body like ours. Okay. He has a different material body. Text 43. So he doesn't have a material body like we do. Yeah. Text 43. The great sage Maitreya continued, my dear Vidura, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the protector of surrendered souls, being thus addressed by the Prachetas and worshipped by them, replied, "May whatever you have prayed for be fulfilled." Wow, that's a nice blessing. After saying this, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, whose prowess is never defeated, left. The Prachetas were unwilling to be separated from him because they had not seen him to their full satisfaction. Yeah, they'll never be completely satisfied because the Lord has infinite transcendental qualities. Purport: the word anapavarga, virya, is significant in this verse. The word ana means without, and pavarga means the materialist way of life, and virya means prowess, power. The prowess of the Supreme Personality of Godhead always contains six basic opulences, one of which is renunciation. Although the Prachetas desired to see the Lord to their full satisfaction, the Lord left. According to Srila Jiva Goswami, this is an exhibition of his kindness to innumerable other devotees. Although he was being attracted by the Prachetas, he left. This is an example of his renunciation. This renunciation was also exhibited by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu when he stayed with Advaita Prabhu after taking sannyasa. All the devotees there wanted him to stay a few days longer, but Lord Chaitanya left without hesitation. The conclusion is that although the Supreme Lord has unlimited kindness for the devotees, he is not attached to anyone. He is equally kind to his innumerable devotees all over the creation. Okay, so that means that he's equally kind to his innumerable devotees all over the creation. Very nice transcendental statement. Text 44. Thereafter, all the Prachetas emerged from the waters of the sea. They saw that all the trees on land had grown very tall, as if to obstruct the path to the heavenly planets. These trees had covered the entire surface of the world. At this time, the Prachetas became very angry. Yeah, they can't see I guess the growth was so thick that they could hardly see anything. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. King Prarsena Barisat left his kingdom before his sons arrived after their execution of penance and austerity. Okay, 1 second. The sons, the Prachetas, were ordered by the Supreme Personality of Godhead to come out of the water and go to the kingdom of their father in order to take care of that kingdom. Well, that's normal. However, when they came out, they saw that everything had been neglected due to the king's absence. They first observed that food grains were not being produced and that there were no agricultural activities. That's a big no-no. Indeed, the surface of the world was practically covered by very tall trees. It seemed as though the trees were determined to stop people from going into outer space to reach the heavenly kingdoms. Oh, it's like a jail. The Prachetas became very angry when they saw the surface of the globe covered in this way. They desired that the land be cleared for crops. Oh, that's a good purpose. It is not a fact that jungles and trees attract clouds and rain because we find rainfall over the sea. Human beings can inhabit any place on the surface of the earth by clearing jungles and converting land for agricultural purposes. People can keep cows, and all economic problems can be solved in that way. That just shows you how important cows are. One need only work to produce grains and take care of the cows. Haribol. The word found in the jungles may be used. I'm sorry. The wood found in the jungles may be used for constructing cottages. In this way, the economic problem of humanity can be solved. Yeah, you have some wood to build a house, and you have so much, let's say, grains and and for the human beings as well as for the taking care of the cows. At the present moment, there are many vacant lands throughout the world, and if they are properly utilized, there will be no scarcity of food. As far as rain is concerned, it is the performance of yajna that attracts rain, as stated in Bhagavad Gita 3:14. Anad bhavanti bhutani parajanyat anasambhava yajnat bhavati parajanyo yajyat karma samudbhava. Very nice verse. All living bodies subsist on food grains, which are produced from rains. Rains are produced by performance of yajna, or sacrifice, and yajna is born of prescribed duties. By performing sacrifice, man will have sufficient rainfall and crops. Yeah, so we should not engage in sinful activities, being lazy, and not cultivating grains. Very important. Cultivate grains, not only for the cattle, but also for human beings. Text 45. My dear king, at the time of devastation, Lord Shiva emits fire and air from his mouth out of anger to make the surface of the earth completely treeless. The Prachetas also emitted fire and air from their mouths. Wow, it must have been horrible. Purport. In this verse, Vidura is addressed as Rajan, which means O king. In this regard, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakura comments that a Dhira never becomes angry because he is always situated in devotional service. Advanced devotees can control their senses. Therefore, a devotee can be addressed as Rajan. A king controls and rules in various ways among citizens. Similarly, one who can control his senses is the king of his senses. He is a Swami or Goswami. The Swamis and Goswamis are therefore sometimes addressed as Maharaja or king. Okay. Next, after seeing that all the trees on the surface of the earth were being turned to ashes, wow, that must have been horrible. Lord Brahma immediately came to the sons of King Barhisman and pacified them with words of logic. Wow, only a devotee can do that. Purport. Whenever there is some uncommon occurrence on any planet, Lord Brahma, being in charge of the whole universe, immediately comes to control the situation. Lord Brahma also came when Hiranyakashipu underwent severe penances and austerities and made the whole universe tremble. A responsible man in any establishment is always alert to keep peace and harmony with the establishment. Similarly, Lord Brahma is also allowed to keep peace and harmony within the universe. He consequently pacified the sons of King Parhishman with good logic. Text 47. The remaining trees, being very much afraid of the Prachetas, immediately delivered their daughters at the advice of Lord Brahma. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The daughter of the trees is referred to in text 13 of this chapter. This daughter was born of Kandu and Pramlocha. The society girl Pramlocha, after giving birth to the child, immediately left for the heavenly kingdom. While the child was crying, the king of the moon took compassion upon her and saved her by putting his finger into her mouth. This child was cared for by the trees, and when she grew up, by the order of Lord Brahma, she was delivered to the Prachetas as their wife. The name of the girl was Marisa. As the next verse will explain, it was the predominating deity of the trees that delivered the daughter. In this connection, Srila Jiva Goswami Prabhupada states, Vriksha tad adishtada, Vriksha tad ahistatri devata. The trees means the controlling deity of those trees. In Vedic literature, we find that there is a controlling deity of the water. Similarly, there is a controlling deity of the trees. The Prachetas were engaged in burning all the trees to ashes, and they considered the trees their enemies. To pacify the Prachetas, the tree and the predominating deity of the trees, under the advice of Lord Brahma, delivered the daughter Marisa. Text 48. Following the order of Lord Brahma, all the Prachetas accepted the girl as their wife. Wow. Okay. From the womb of this girl, the son of Lord Brahma, named Daksha, took birth. Daksha had to take birth from the womb of Marisa due to his disobeying and disrespecting Lord Mahadeva or Shiva. Consequently, he had to give up his body twice. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. In this connection, the word Mahad, Avajanat, is significant. King Daksha was the son of Lord Brahma. Therefore, in a previous birth, he was a Brahmana. But because of his behaving like a non-Brahmana, a Brahmana, by insulting or disrespecting Lord Mahadeva, he had to take birth within the semen of a Kshatriya. That is to say, he became the son of the Prachetas. Not only that, but because of his disrespecting Lord Shiva, he had to undergo the tribulation of taking birth from within the womb of a woman. That's not very nice. It's suffering. In the Daksha Yajna arena, he was once killed by Lord Shiva's servant, Virabhadra. Because that was not sufficient, he again took birth from the womb of Marisa at the end of the Daksha Yajna and the disastrous incidents there. Daksha offered his prayer to Lord Shiva. Oh, that's good. Although he had to give up his body and take birth from the womb of a woman impregnated by the semen of a Kshatriya, he received all opulences by the grace of Lord Shiva. These are the subtle laws of material nature. Unfortunately, people in this modern age do not know how these laws are working. Having no knowledge of the eternity of the spirit soul and its transmigration, the population of the present age is in the greatest ignorance. Because of this, it is said in Bhagavatam 1.1.10, Manda Samanda Matayo, Manda Bhagya Hi Upadruta. The total population in this age of Kali Yuga is very bad, lazy, unfortunate, and disturbed by material conditions. I agree with that statement. Text 49. His previous body had been destroyed, but he, the same Daksha, inspired by the supreme will, created all the desired living entities in the Chaksusa Manvantara. So he's a Prajapati. He can produce living entities. As stated in Bhagavad Gita 8:17, Sahasra Yuga Paryantam Aharyad Brahmano Vidu Ratrim Yuga Sahasrantam Te Ho Ratra Vido Jana. By human calculation, 1,000 ages taken together is the duration of Brahma's one day. That's a very, very long time. And such also is the duration of his night. Brahma's one day consists of 1,000 cycles of the four yugas, Satya, Treta, Dwapara, and Kali. In that one day, there are 14 Manvantaras, and out of these Manvantaras, This Chaksusa Manvantara is the sixth. The various manus existing in one day of Brahma are as follows. Swayambhuva, Swarochisa, Uttama, Tamasa, Raivata, Chaksusa, Vaivasvata, Savarni, Daksha Savarni, Brahma Savarni, Dharma Savarni, Rudra Savarni, Deva Savarni, and Indra Savarni. Thus, there are 14 manus in one day of Brahma. In a year, there are 5,040 manus. Brahma has to live for 100 years. Consequently, the total of manus appearing and disappearing during the life of one Brahma is 504,000. So it's like 100,000, 504,000. This is the calculation for one universe. And there are innumerable universes. All these manus come and go simply by the breathing process of Mahavishnu. As stated in the Brahma Samhita, yes, yaika nishvasita kalamatavalam ya, jivanti loma vilaja jagarandanata, Vishnu Mahansa ikayasya kalavishesho, Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bhajami. The word Jagat Anda, Nata, means Lord Brahma. There are innumerable Jagat Anda Nata Brahmas, and thus we can calculate the many manus. The present age is under the control of Vaivasvata Manu. Each Manu lives 4,320,000 years. Multiplied by 71. The present Manu has already lived for 4,320,000 years. Multiplied by 28. All these long lifespans are ultimately ended by the laws of material nature. The controversy of the Daksha Yajna took place in the Swayambhuva Manvantara period. As a result, Daksha was punished by Lord Shiva. But by virtue of his prayers to Lord Shiva, he became eligible to regain his former opulence. According to Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakura, Daksha underwent severe penances up to the fifth Manvantara. Thus, at the beginning of the sixth Manvantara, known as Chaksusa Manvantara, Daksha regained his former opulence by the blessing of Lord Shiva. Now that just proves how powerful Lord Shiva is. Text 50 and 51. After being born, Daksha, by the super excellence of his bodily luster, covered all others' bodily opulence. Because he was very expert in performing fruitive activity, he was called by the name Daksha, meaning the very expert. Lord Brahma therefore engaged Daksha in the work of generating living entities and maintaining them. In due course of time, Daksha also engaged other Prajapatis or progenitors in the process of generation and maintenance. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Daksha became almost as powerful as Lord Brahma. Consequently, Lord Brahma engaged him in generating population. Daksha was very influential and opulent in his own turn. Daksha engaged other Prajapatis, headed by Marichi. In this way, the population of the universe increased. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports of the fourth chapter, the fourth canto, 13th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled The Activities of the Prachetas. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Chapter 31. Narada instructs the Prachetas. Text 1. Maitreya Uvacha. Tata Utpana Vijnana Asvadokshajaya. Asvadhokshaja Vas Itam Samaranta Atmaje Varyam Visrijya Pravarjan Brihat. The great sage Maitreya continued. After that, the Prachetas lived at home for thousands of years and developed perfect knowledge in spiritual consciousness. Oh, that's wonderful. At last, they remembered the blessings of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and left home, putting their wife in charge of a perfect son. Well, that's the perfect way to have society. That by the spiritual power of a father, a perfect son can be born to take care of the mother and be a good administrator of society. Purport. After the Prachetas had finished their penances, they were blessed by the Supreme Personality of God. The Lord blessed them by telling them that after finishing their family life, they would return home back to Godhead. In due course of time, after finishing their family life, which lasted thousands of years according to the calculations of the demigods, the Prachetas decided to leave home, putting their wife in the charge of a son named Daksha. This is the process of Vedic civilization. In the beginning of life, as a brahmachari, one has to undergo severe penances, and austerities in order to be educated in spiritual values. The brahmachari or student is never allowed to mingle with women and learn from the beginning of life about sex enjoyment. Oh, well, that's what's happening today, unfortunately. The basic flaw in modern civilization is that boys and girls are given freedom during school and college to enjoy sex life. That's absolutely correct. Most of the children are Varnasankara, meaning born of undesirable fathers and mothers. Consequently, the whole world is in chaos. Actually, human civilization should be based on the Vedic principles. This means that in the beginning of life of boys and girls should undergo penances and austerities. When they are grown, they should get married, live for some time at home, and beget children. When the children are grown up, the man should leave home and search for Krishna consciousness. In this way, one can make one's life perfect by going home to the kingdom of God. Well, this description of an ideal life is not happening today. Very few people, very few men are uh, leaving their family and searching for Krishna consciousness. So they give up their home and search for Krishna consciousness. But most men today are simply remaining in the what you would call shackles of material life with their family and home, uh, and not making one's life perfect by going home to the kingdom of God. Unless one practices penances and austerities in his student life, he cannot understand the existence of God. It's a very major statement. Without realizing Krishna, one cannot make his life perfect. The conclusion is that when the children are grown, the wife should be put in the children's charge. The husband may then leave home to develop Krishna consciousness. Everything depends on the development of mature knowledge. King Prasanabharisat, the father of the Prachetas, left home before the arrival of his sons, who were engaged in austerity within the water. As soon as the time is ripe, or as soon as one has developed perfect Krishna consciousness, he should leave home, even though all his duties may not be fulfilled. Prasanna Bodhisattva was waiting for the arrival of his sons. But, following the instructions of Narada, as soon as his intelligence was properly developed, he simply left instructions for his ministers to impart to his sons. Thus, without waiting for their arrival, he left home. So he wasn't attached to mundane life, eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. He was really interested in making spiritual advancement, which he cannot do which one cannot do if he stays always under the he remains always in the family life, eating, sleeping, mating, and defending, and avoiding tapasya. Tapasya means engaging in acts of devotional service for Krishna. So, therefore, if one has only a mundane life, eating, sleeping, mating, and defending, and avoiding the service to Krishna, their life is a failure. And they will continue life after life, uh, just wasting their time in the material world and having one body, then another body, then another body, and basically being a victim of their weakness to engage in Krishna consciousness. Giving up a comfortable home life is absolutely necessary for human beings and is advised by Harivilas Maharaj. Hitvat ma patam griham anda kupam. To finish the materialistic way of life, one should leave his so-called comfortable home life, which is simply a means for killing the soul. Atma patam. The home is considered to be a dark well covered by grass, and if one falls within this wall, he simply dies without anyone's caring. One should, therefore, not be too much attached to family life, for it will spoil one's development of Krishna consciousness. Okay, that is very good advice. Text 2. The Prachetas went to the seashore in the west, where the great liberated sage Judge Ali was residing. After perfecting the spiritual knowledge by which one becomes equal toward all living entities, the Prachetas became perfect in Krishna consciousness. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The word Brahma Satra means cultivation of spiritual knowledge. Actually, both the Vedas and severe austerity are known as Brahma. Vedas, or in other words, Vedas Tattva Tapo Brahma. Brahma also means the absolute truth. One has to cultivate knowledge of the absolute truth by pursuing studies in the Vedas and undergoing severe austerities and penances. The Prachetas properly executed this function and consequently became equal to all other living entities. As Bhagavad Gita 1854 confirms, Brahmabhuta Prasanatma Nasochati Nakamshati Samaksave Subhutesu Madbhaktin Labhute Param. One who is thus transcendently situated at once realizes the Supreme Brahman and becomes fully joyful. He never laments nor desires to have anything. He is equally disposed to every living entity. In that state, he attains pure devotional service unto me. Well, that's a very nice verse. And it explains the life and culture of a genuine devotee. When one actually becomes spiritually advanced, he does not see the difference between one living entity and another. This platform is attained by determination. What's the determination? The determination to go back to Godhead. So he doesn't have pet friends or mundane activities. When perfect knowledge is expanded, one ceases to see the outward covering of the living entity. Yeah, he doesn't say, oh, this one's a black guy, that one's a white guy, this one's a yellow guy, etc. He sees rather the spirit soul within the body. Thus, he does not make distinctions between a human being and an animal, a learned Brahmana and a Chandala. Chandala is a low-class person. Vidyavinaye sampane, Brahmane gavi hastini, sunichaiva swapakecha, pandita samadarshina. It's a very nice verse. The humble sage, by virtue of true knowledge, sees with equal vision a learned and gentle Brahmana, a cow, an elephant, a dog, and a dog eater, or outcast. Bhagavad Gita 5:18. A learned person sees everyone equally on a spiritual basis, and a learned person, a devotee, wants to see everyone developed in Krishna consciousness. The place where the Prachetas were residing was perfect for executing spiritual activities. For it indicated that the great sage Jajali attained mukti, or liberation, there. One desiring perfection or liberation should associate with a person who's already liberated. That means like a pure devotee, like Srila Prabhupada. This is called sadhusanga, having the association of a genuine devotee, associating with a perfect devotee. Text 3. After practicing the yoga sana for mystic yoga, the prachetas managed to control their life air, mind, words, and external vision. Thus, by the pranayama process, they were completely relieved of material attachment. By remaining perpendicular, meaning standing up, they could concentrate their minds on the uppermost Brahman. While they were practicing this pranayama, the great sage Narada, who is worshipped both by demons and by demigods, came to see them. Okay, so why would Narada Muni go to see the Prachetas to help them make spiritual advancement? Purport by Srila Prabhupada. In this verse, the words Pare Amale are significant. The realization of Brahman is explained in Srimad Bhagavatam. The absolute truth is realized in three phases: in personal effulgence, meaning Brahman, the localized Paramatma, and the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Bhagavan. In his prayers, Lord Shiva concentrated upon the personal features of the Parabrahman, or Krishna, described in personal terms as Stigna Pravrid Ghana Syaman. Srimad Bhagavatam 4.24.45. Following the instructions of Lord Shiva, the Prachetas also concentrated their minds on the Shama Sundara form of the Supreme Brahman. The Shama Sundara form is the form of Krishna that devotees are always striving to see and worshiping. Although impersonal Brahman, the Paramatma Brahman, and Brahman as the Supreme Person are all on the same transcendental platform, the personal feature of the Supreme Brahman is the ultimate goal and last word in transcendence. The great sage Narada travels everywhere. He goes to the demons and the demigods and is equally respected. You see, even the demons, they respect Narada Muni. He is consequently described herein as Sura Sureda, worshipped both by demons and by demigods. For Narada Muni, the door of every house is open. Very nice. Although there is perpetual animosity between the demons and the demigods, Narada Muni is welcomed everywhere. Narada is considered one of the demigods, of course, and the word Devarsi means the saintly person among the demigods. But not even the demons envy Narada Muni. Therefore, he is equally worshipped both by the demons and by the demigods. A perfect Vaishnava's position should be just like Narada Muni's, completely independent, and like Narada Muni's, completely independent and unbiased. Well, that's the position of a genuine devotee, completely independent and unbiased. He sees with equal vision all living entities. What does equal vision mean? He sees that everyone is emanated from Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, he doesn't discriminate on the basis of the body. He sees the actual position of the soul and knows that everyone is the has emanated from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So everyone is holy. Of course, some people are acting in a holy way, and some people are acting in abominable ways. But the devotee sees the potential of every living entity, just like Prabhupada. When he came to America originally, he just saw a lot of hippies who were engaged in sense gratification. But that did not stop him from preaching because he knew that everyone has emanated from Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And therefore, their engagement in sense gratification is an artificial thing. It's not who they really are. And Srila Prabhupada educated devotees to become actual devotees, controlling their mind and senses and engaging in Krishna's service. Even though they had become so degraded to have illicit sex and intoxication and talking nonsense all the time and studying mundane knowledge. Somehow or other, Prabhupada, by his potency of purity, was able to change the life of so many devotees who became genuine devotees by following Prabhupada's instructions. That means that everyone has the potential of developing Krishna consciousness and ultimately going back to Godhead. As soon as the Prachetas saw that the great sage Narada had appeared, they immediately got up, even from their asanas, their position of sitting. As required, they immediately offered obeisances and worshipped him, meaning Narada Muni. And when they saw that Narada Muni was properly seated, they began to ask him questions. Now, you see, I always say, are there any questions? And there's deep silence. But there should be many questions because life is always full of difficult situations. And that should prompt people to ask questions. Why is this happening to me? Purport. It is significant that all the Prachetas were engaged in practicing yoga to concentrate their minds on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. What does yoga mean? Yoga means connected to Krishna. So obviously, that requires concentration of one's mind on the Supreme Personality of Godhead instead of being completely concentrated on sense gratification, which would be a disaster for anyone. Text 5. All the Prachetas began to address the great sage Narada. O great sage, O Brahmana, we hope you met with no disturbances while coming here. It is due to our great fortune that we are now able to see you. By the traveling of the sun, people are relieved from the fear of the darkness of night, a fear brought about by thieves and rogues. Similarly, your traveling is like the sun, for you drive away all kinds of fear. Yeah, that's what happens when you associate with real devotees. Because of the night's darkness, everyone is afraid of rogues and thieves, especially in great cities. People are often afraid to go out on the streets. And we understand that even in a great city like New York, people do not like to go out at night. More or less, when it is night, everyone is afraid, either in the city or in the village. However, as soon as the sun rises, everyone is relieved. Similarly, this material world is dark by nature. Everyone is afraid of danger at every moment. But when one sees the devotee like Narada, all fear is relieved. Just as the sun disperses darkness, the appearance of a great sage like Narada disperses ignorance. When one meets Narada or his representative, a spiritual master, one is freed from all anxiety brought about by ignorance. Yes. Okay, we'll read one more verse. O Master, may we inform you that because of our being overly attached to family affairs, we almost forgot the instructions we received from Lord Shiva and Lord Vishnu. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Remaining in family life is a kind of concession for sense enjoyment, and that's true. One should know that sense enjoyment is not required, but one has to accept sense enjoyment inasmuch as one has to live. As confirmed in Srimad Bhagavatam, well, what does that mean? One has to engage, one has to accept sense enjoyment inasmuch as one has to live. Well, it means that one takes a bath, one cuts the fingernails, one shaves the head. All these things are types of sense enjoyment, but it's in order to function as a genuine devotee. Not, they don't use this as an excuse for sense enjoyment. So a devotee will bathe regularly, the devotee will chant Hare Krishna every day, a devotee will engage in dancing and other nice spiritual activities. Those are pleasing, and the senses are satisfied by doing them, but it's not for sense gratification. It's for coming closer to the Lord and through devotional service. So both ways, whether you're dancing because you're drunk and you want to have a good time, or you're dancing because you're Krishna conscious, you're still dancing, right? But one kind of dancing is abominable and the other dancing is transcendental. That is the position of a devotee. His dancing and all his activities are transcendental, not mundane. But there are so many people that dance, but they're engaged in going deeper and deeper into Maya by their nonsense. Kamasya Nendriya Priti. One has to become a Goswami and control his senses. One should not simply use his senses for sense gratification. Rather, the senses should be employed just as much as required for maintaining the body. And that is a ideal life. So the senses should be employed just as much as required for maintaining body and soul together. Srila Rupa Goswami recommends Anasaktasya Vishayan Yatarham Pitayunjita. One should not be attached to sense objects, but should accept sense enjoyment as much as required. No more. If one wishes to enjoy the senses more than required, he becomes attached to family life, which means bondage. All the Prachetas admitted their fault in remaining in household life. Well, If household life means that you are following all the rules and regulations of Krishna consciousness, then there's nothing wrong with it. But if it means enjoying one type of sense gratification after another type of sense gratification, then it's actually hellish. And you become very frustrated in the end. Okay, so I think we'll stop right there. Are there any questions? We read a lot of verses. Are there any questions on what we read today? So our takeaway today is the statement as confirmed in Srimad Bhagavatam 1.2.10. Kamasya Nendriya Priti. One has to become a Goswami and control his senses. One should not simply use the senses for sense enjoyment or sense gratification. Rather, the senses should be employed just as much as required for maintaining body and soul together. Srila Rupa Goswami recommends anasaktasya vishayan yatarham upayunjita. One should not be attached to sense objects, but should accept sense enjoyment as much as required, but no more than that. Well, we don't really need to engage in very much sense enjoyment. What we do need is to be always engaged in the service of Krishna. That will save us from becoming addicted to unrelenting sense enjoyment, which makes us a fool engaged in only mundane activities, hearing only mundane things, eating mundane food, basically living a sinful life, thinking that one has attained the highest perfection of life, but actually it's the lowest perfection of life. So many people, they're driving their big cars, they have a lot of money in the bank, or they might not have a lot of money in the bank, but they're still engaged in all kinds of sense gratification. So whether you're a poor sense gratifier or a rich sense gratifier, you're still a sense gratifier. But a devotee may be poor or a devotee may be rich, but the devotee is engaged always in Krishna's service. Okay, so I think we'll stop right there. And our takeaway for today. One should not be attached to sense objects, but should accept sense enjoyment as much as required. No more. No more means that one can gradually give up sense enjoyment and bring it to so far downward that you cannot even see it as being sense enjoyment. It's only using the senses to please Krishna. That means that you're not engaged in sense gratification anymore. You're only engaging the senses in devotional service to please Krishna. So either we engage in sense gratification to please our own lusty desires, or we engage in sense gratification to please the senses of Krishna. In other words, instead of pleasing our senses, we are engaged in pleasing the senses of Krishna, because we have the deities, and the deity has a form, eyes, ears, nose, tongue, skin, and so forth. So instead of spending all the time pleasing our own senses, we now have changed our orientation to pleasing the senses of Krishna, who has eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and skin, right? So we please Krishna's body. And in that way, we are also satisfied without any sense gratification. Sense gratification means forgetting Krishna and engaging in selfish activities for our own sense gratification. But spiritual life is pleasing the senses of Krishna in order to develop eventually love and devotion for the Lord. So when you serve someone like Krishna with love and devotion, you're on the path back to Godhead. And when you simply deal in a mundane way with people without any desire to please Krishna, you are in the throes of Maya and you'll be misled your whole life. And at the moment of death, you'll be scared because you don't know what's going to happen next. Yeah, what's going to happen next is instead of having 2 legs, you'll have 4 legs. Instead of having a body of a human being, you'll have the body of a dog. And that's what happens to people who waste their life in sense gratification. Okay, I think we'll stop right there. I don't want to scare you anymore. Are there any questions? Are there any questions?
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj. Snitya Hari Priyadas.
Yes, Prabhu.
It's interesting, Guru Maharaj. Prachetas, they met Lord Shiva and they had darshan of Krishna, and they're unable to control their senses, and they are getting trained on how to control senses. So it's interesting to know. And it's just I'm wondering, like, what's the position of living entities like us, me, who never had darshan. Just curious on this point.
But you have darshan. You are seeing the deity. You're hearing about Krishna's pastimes. You are having nice prasadam instead of eating junk. And you're bathing regularly and you're associating with nice devotees coming to class and hearing all about the Srimad Bhagavatam. So what is your problem?
Yeah, this mind wandering about the Prachutas, even after having darshan of Lord Shiva and Krishna directly face to face, they're still struggling through controlling the senses and expressing anger.
Well, that is hellish. Uh, Eventually, through the association of devotees and engaging regularly in chanting your rounds, minimum 16 good rounds. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. You should not be any longer a fool engaged in mundane nonsense activities. You should become a devotee that gives up all nonsense activities and only engages in activities meant to please Krishna. You're still going to have activities, but you change the nature of the activities from nonsense activities to Krishna conscious activities. You're still acting, but you change the quality of the acting from nonsense behavior to Krishna conscious behavior. So I think your question is, okay, I am a devotee, but to tell you the truth, I have a lot of trouble controlling my mind. It's wandering here and there. That's why there's class, morning and evening. That's why there's Sankirtan. That's why there is chanting your rounds. All of that is to take your mind away from thinking about sense gratification. And eventually, if you stay on the path, you will lose your attraction to sense gratification and be happy that you can chant Hare Krishna and 16 rounds minimum every day and bathe regularly and uh, have, let's say, a decent family life, but not a mundane family life. That you're able to inspire your wife and children to be Krishna conscious. And eventually to have the strength, the mental strength to give up family and and nice, cozy material situation and become eventually a sannyasi, a renunciate, who's always engaged in Krishna conscious activities. Now you reach that position gradually. If you try and reach it, let's say you're only 12 or 20 years old and you become a complete renunciate, that is not really good. I mean, it is good if you can do it, but that means that, let's say you're 20 years old and you're completely renounced. That means you still have 40, 50 years or more of renounced life. Well, I can tell you, there are many people who renounce everything at a younger age. And when they get to be 50, 60, sometimes 70, they fall down. I can give you examples right now of some devotees in that situation. They've been devotees for 40, 50 years and they've fallen down recently, right? So better we go gradually from being a non devotee to being completely detached from material life. That way we know every step we took to be fully renounced. Yes, you have a question?
Yes, Maharaj. So, in this, what you're just now explaining, like, is that, like the king of Puri, like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, I think he was not giving any association to him because he thought he was like a materialist. But once he was like demonstrated that even though he was a king, he was really kind of focused on like more like service. Only then he became favorable towards the king. Is that like an example of like even though he's a king?
Even though he was a king, he put on regular clothes and surrendered to Krishna, Lord Chaitanya with love and devotion, without any pompous dressing or behavior. He surrendered to the Lord, even though he's the king.
Mhm.
So that surrender is absolutely necessary for all of us. We have to understand I am not the enjoyer. Krishna is the enjoyer. And therefore, I should do everything to please Krishna's senses and stop doing everything to please my own senses. So therefore, Krishna likes it when you wake up early, when you take a bath, when you come to class, when you go on Sankirtan, when you preach. These are all activities that Krishna likes. The activities that mundane people like are sleeping in, engaging in sex at night, and working hard during the day to make money and spend the money, and so forth. So there's a major difference between the daily regulative activities of a devotee and the daily activities of materialists who are only seeking different types of sense gratification throughout their whole life. So there's a major difference between the two. The devotee is always seeking situations where he can associate with other devotees and learn more and more about how to be a devotee, a good devotee, and help others also make spiritual advancement. And the materialist, he is selfish. He doesn't care about other people. He only cares about himself and maybe a little bit about his family, but it's mainly for his own sense gratification. So, as a devotee, we will engage in tapasya. As a karmi, we will engage in sense gratification. That's the major difference between the two. So we are not afraid of tapasya because our tapasya is not something that is impossible to do, like uh, staying alone in a dark well and meditating. That's not our Krishna conscious activity. We are active and we're always well wishers of others, and we're always engaged in activities of devotional service. So we are never alone in a dark cave meditating like the nonsense Mayavadis. We are always active in Krishna consciousness. Okay, so just see the difference. Being always active in Krishna consciousness, which is fun and which is enlivening and which is full of happiness and love for Krishna. Or being a Mayavadi who avoids people and meditates silently in a cave. Just imagine how boring that is. So we should understand what it means to be a happy devotee in Krishna consciousness. Chant Hare Krishna always and be happy. That's our life. All right, we'll stop right there unless there are other questions. So, the takeaway from today. One should not be attached to sense objects, but should accept sense enjoyment as much as required. Or, in other words, that means to the minimum, no more. If one wishes to enjoy the senses more than required, he becomes attached to family life, which means bondage. All the prachetas admitted their fault in remaining in household life. So let's talk practically. If your household life is Krishna conscious, then there's nothing wrong with it. But if your household life has become mundane, your kids are not interested in chanting Hare Krishna. They were when they were like 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and they started to drift away a little bit, watching television and doing mundane things. And then finally, they get to be 16 years old, and they're no longer interested at all in Krishna consciousness. What is your responsibility at that point? Well, your responsibility should be to always show an example of being Krishna conscious to your children and your wife and your friends and so forth, so that they can see your happiness as a devotee and their misery as sense gratifiers. Eventually, they'll get the point. But the best thing is to always protect your children and your family from mundane, selfish sense gratification. I remember one day there was a group of Hindus, and they were going to celebrate, I don't know, one of the celebrations. And I was not in a part of their group, but I was watching what they were doing on this uh, celebration day, right? And instead of celebrating like we do, they got some liquor and they were having a celebration, right? Like it could be New Year's Eve, something like that. And they were, really gung ho about having liquor and talking nonsense, staying up really late. Usually on New Year's Eve, I go to sleep early. I don't want to, Uh, I mean, when I was at Carmi, New Year's Eve was always miserable. People would come nicely dressed and speaking nicely, and by the end of the evening, they were all throwing up and fighting and just engaged in nonsense activities, talking nonsense, and that was their New Year's Eve. New Year's Eve for me was rather go to sleep early and wake up early. It's not really special for me. By the way, what is that? Is there anything spiritual about New Year's Eve? I don't think so. Other than having firecrackers and talking nonsense. Okay, well, thank you very much, my dear devotees. No firecrackers and no nonsense. We should always be serious. There's no such thing as having a vacation from Krishna consciousness. There's no vacation. There's always devotional service. Hari Bol. Thank you very much. Please chant Hare Krishna and be happy. Okay.